Hello. Hi, everybody. It's great to see you. Hey, it's so good to see my friends. I love that you're here with me. I truly miss you when I don't get to see you. And so it's just delightful to see you. I feel like I can give you all a big hug right now. And someday maybe all of you will meet each other. Here we are in our Zoom class and ready to go on the sacred anatomy. Hi, guys. Oh, my friends, thank you for being here. Thank you so much. I'm excited because things have been really popping. And what's so interesting is we have this juxtaposition against the kind of chaos and upset in the world. And yet, spirit seems to be like driving forward. Are you guys feeling that? Are you feeling the lift of the energetic and the advancement of love and sort of the lightness of being? Are you feeling that? Because I sure am. And I'm really excited to be here because I think it's a way that we can hold the light high, which is what our job is. This is our job right now. Hold the lantern high. Because otherwise, we're not contributing. If we pull ourselves out of the dynamic of the culture, whatever it may be, wherever you are, because it's different all over the world, we're not holding the lantern high. We're letting the light go out. So that's really important. Whatever you've got to do in your daily life to light your fire, to get hot so that you can shine out that light wherever you go in your day, or even if you don't go out, just shining out that light. Such an important message and such an important time. And I know many of you are doing that already. So yay, way to go. Keep it up. All right, we already had some questions. Diane got in there right away and got her question posted. I have missed you, Diane. It's so good to see your shining face and your beautiful, beautiful energy. So it's great to be with you. Let's see. Now, let me open that. She says, I would be interested in a rundown of how brain injury, concussion, stroke, etc., affect the systems of the HES, the human energy structure. And then I see a greeting from Barbara Short, and then Nazi's got a question. So Nazi, we'll get to that in a minute. Let me take this fantastic question from Diane first. Diane is a practitioner of sacred anatomy energy medicine. So she's asking a much more detailed kind of brainiac question. So hang on, strap in if you guys don't know much about sacred anatomy, because we're diving in. So the sacred anatomy, first of all, it's all around us and it's in us as well. We have a thing called the light body inside of our physicality. And that light body could also be thought of as the photonic body. So it's reflective of the energy generated at a cellular level. And that energy is within us. Now, it's also, thank you, Cheryl. So that light body is kind of lacking in persona. You know, it doesn't have the same kind of personality that your face and your liver do, let's say. But the light body is kind of an echo of what exists in the physical body. And it's a way that the subtle anatomy can interact with the physical. So it's a really interesting place to study because it shows us kind of an interesting way we can affect the physicality without even touching the body. So when you have a stroke, even a heart attack, any kind of brain event, if you've had a concussion, you've been in an accident, You've experienced a deep shock. All of these things affect the functioning of the brain. Now, I'm going to make a suggestion that's a little bit outside the norm, but it's also something I think many of you will relate to. And that is that the brain is not only located in the head. So the brain is located in the gut as well. In fact, the same kind of tissue that makes up the brain, the folds of the what they call the gray matter, is pretty much what the interior of the intestines also have. So interestingly enough, when we get concussed or we have a stroke, the functioning of the brain in the head brain, as I inelegantly call it, it will be affected. But the gut may not be. Now, the question comes up, what if the gut has an impact of some sort? Then that can affect the brain as well. So it's important to understand that these two parts of the physicality are deeply related. Let's talk about the light body. So the brain, the head brain, and the gut in the light body is also echoed. So what can we do to balance the head brain? What can we do? Because if you've had a stroke, the event takes place in your brain. If you've had a concussion, the event takes place in your brain and your skull, of course. Because if you're concussed, if you're hit, the skull is also impacted. Now, what are the parts of the sacred anatomy that are around the skull? The chakras. So we have a brow chakra, we have a throat chakra that's just a little below, and then we have a crown chakra. But we also have other parts of the sacred anatomy that are connected into the head. One of them is the connector at the back of the occipital ridge that connects into the divine gate, which is way the heck up, 20 feet above your head. So if you're concussed, you can jar loose connectors that anchor the chakras. So chakras are not just like these wheels that are spinning. That's actually a reflective chakra. Chakras are plugged into and connected with the sacred anatomy profoundly because they anchor into the core sheath. And the core, which runs vertically through the entire structure, it intersects with all 13 major chakras. And you can see the core coming down. And those are incoming chakra energies and outgoing chakra energies. Actually, it's called the incoming core pathway and then the outgoing chakra stream. So the soul pathway as it comes in is generic. It's holding energy as it comes in. Now, rather than get into the workings of a chakra right now, what I want to talk about are the connectors. So we go back to that picture, Cheryl. Thank you so much. So the connectors for most major chakras are on the side. You see those little sort of yellowish brown things? Those are connectors, sort of stock or standardized connectors. And they come out of the interactions at the core sheath, all the way inside of this part of the chakra at the front, where you see those balls kind of. Inside is the core, and there is a sheath around the core. Out of that sheath emerges the connector. And there's a whole way that the connector moves through the structure. It impacts the caduceus, which is a support system for the vertebral column. Can we see a picture of the caduceus, Cheryl? So the caduceus is this vertebral column that keeps the core, contained, upright. And it interacts with the connectors. So one of the things that can happen if you're concussed is, there we go, there's the caduceus right there. And you can see the physical body with its 7 chakras. And above, you can see the other chakras. So you can see the chakras, you can see how the caduceus moves. And what happens is out of the sides of the caduceus, where because it runs up and down vertically at the front and at the back of the core sheath. So on the sides of the caduceus, there's this spot where they connect. And out of that spot comes the connector for the chakra. And that chakra connector anchors the chakra into a relationship with the physicality. Okay, come out of the picture now. So when you have a concussion, you can become disconnected from a chakra. So a chakra can lose its connector. When that happens, the electromagnetic field is impacted. All right, we're going to go look at another picture. Cheryl, can you show me one of the pictures that shows a chakra and the electromagnetic field? So this is more advanced work, obviously. If you're brand new to sacred anatomy, like I said, check your seatbelt, because this stuff is not written about in other people's work. This is my work. So here, if you look at this drawing, this is seen from above, the anterior and posterior reflective chakras. So at the center, we can see the 9 segments of a major chakra. And you can see those white dots on the side there. What we're looking at are the point of origin of the reflective chakra, which is part of the electromagnetic field, the part of the structure that dies at death. So our electromagnetic field does not live past our physical experience. Now, this is where it gets very interesting, because your light body, which is inside you, is totally related to the electromagnetic field and has all of these reflective chakras that are firing at the front and firing at the back and coming out of the sides of the core sheath, anchoring into the physicality. Okay, come back to me now. So when we anchor into the physical body, our chakras do this thing where they anchor into parts of the brain, they anchor into the back of the skull, they anchor into the thyroid, they anchor into all kinds of places. There's a whole bunch of places. So one of the big things that's affected by a concussion, a brain event of any kind, is disconnection of the chakras. But here's the way it impacts you in your physical life. Your reflective chakra also goes down. So if you have had a disconnection of one of the what I call the chakra connectors, and it's pulled away, your reflective chakra stops firing. And if that chakra stops firing, what happens is you're unable to connect, communicate, to make heard what it is your message in the world is, to get it out of your mouth and into the world. And you tend to experience a thing that blows back into the brain that's called an amygdala storm. If you cannot connect psychologically, emotionally, physically with other people, your brain starts to storm. And when that happens, when an amygdala storm happens, you become unable to control crying, unable to control anger, unable to control upset in general. And I experienced this when I had a stroke in 2009, and then a second one at the beginning of 2010. And what happened was that my electromagnetic reflective chakras, they went down in 8 of the 10 reflective chakras. So when that happened, I couldn't communicate clearly. Everything I said sounded like confusion and chaos and upset. And so what happened was that the sort of unconnected energy, the way that the energy was, it was like radically firing all over. And so what happened was that I would have these amygdala storms. And at first, it just made me feel like passing out. And then, secondly, as time passed, I started to just get really angry, and I was unable to control my anger for a couple of hours, which was very uncharacteristic. And or I'd be crying for like 3 or 4 hours, or just sort of hysterical. And that was not a psychological event. It's really important to know that an electromagnetic event of that nature, which was really severe, truthfully appears to be psychological. But it wasn't. It was about connection, communication. So this takes us to the function of the electromagnetic field, which is something that Diane has really, really become an expert on. She's quite committed to the electromagnetic field as a venue, really. it's her venue. And I think, Diane, the question you're asking just goes hand in glove with electromagnetic awareness and how we work with it, how we use it, and how it responds and reacts with the physicality. So when we have this unplugging, this breakdown, right? When we have this happen, first of all, it can happen repeatedly to people. So you can have multiple disconnections of chakra connectors. It can happen again and again because you might have a deeper pathology. So a deeper pathology that relates to the chakras would be something like a soul path congestion. It would be something like a cyst in the chakras, or it might be a kind of compression of a chakra, or other things. There's a big list of things it could be. So all these kinds of things impact and influence the way that your brain functions. Because let's look at it this way. You are one body. You're not two bodies. You're not a spiritual body and a physical body. You're two ideas, but you're not two bodies. You're one body. So when you have an impact to the physicality, like a stroke or other brain event where there's a bleed, or a concussion where the brain is simply tossed about, you have the experience of the subtle reacting to the physical, and the physical unable, perhaps, to continue its deep connection from head to gut. So concussions especially disconnect the gut. And there's this way that it starts to be difficult to have this kind of embodied sensation. So when we study somatics, we study the art of embodiment. We study the art of walking, standing, moving, sitting. And in the context of this embodied experience, we connect head and gut. Those two parts of us really become very unified, and we begin to move from our gut, thinking from the head, moving from the gut. So we're actually thinking from the gut as well. And when you have an event in your head, you can lose the ability to think from your gut. And that can be really devastating for a person because you kind of get disconnected from that deep well of intuition. All right, I've talked a lot. I can see questions appearing. I can see Diane's questions. So if you've got some, please come back with. Diane, I have to say this question I could talk about this the entire time, but I wanted to give you like a quickie kind of answer, but there's more. Let me just say there's more.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to take up the class with this. I just was interested in overview. I knew you would have information that would be helpful. And so there's a lot that I can go with on this because you've brought up certain things that I hadn't quite looked at yet. And I'm just seeing as I just FYI, I got a majorly bad concussion over a year ago, so I'm still dealing with it. It is so common, and I think it's a major undiagnosed issue for many people, brain injuries and concussions. And also, what I've seen is electromagnetic sensitivity, which luckily I don't really have anymore. It's invariably something in the brain. It's either a concussion, an injury, an infection, or toxicity. It's always brain related. So
Yeah.
I can go down a bunch of roads from this. So I really appreciate it. But this really, it's epidemic, especially among.
It it is epidemic, especially with the kind of sports that people play. You know, hockey, soccer, football, all involve brain concussions.
Yeah.
I
And I also
mean,
want to say whiplash, so many of my clients
whiplash.
who've had whiplash who have no idea they also have a brain injury. And that's a big part of why they're still suffering, 5 years later.
So, working in the light body, Diane, is something I would urge you to do. Look at that light body, and you want to really bring those two parts together. That is actually one of the things I'm going to talk about in the wisdom teachings, is how do we get the head and the gut working together. So I've got a class coming up that's a very advanced class that some of you were in, I'm really excited about. So anyway, thank you, Diane, for such a good question. Now, there was another really good question from Nazi, I think. The most important bridge being the bridge between material and subtle. Yeah, here we are again. And our chakra and main chakra between HMF and blended energy system. How does it manifest? Is the sheer force of blended vortices of the energies making the bridge? Okay, so let me just close this so I can. It's the sheer force of the energies making the bridge. I can't say yes to that. The sheer force is not doing that. But the vortices that we were just looking at, that's a way that the bridge occurs. But here's the thing. Think of it, it's the electromagnetic field, right? And the electromagnetic, so the electrical is going out, and you have those electric connections with people, where I can see the sparks, electro. But then there's the magnetic attraction. So the electromagnetic field is doing both of those things. And your energy actually goes out. And this is what some people have named the chakras. Now, I'm a little bit of a wild hair because I say that there's two types of chakras. There's the reflective chakra, and then there's the major chakra. So the major chakra is the one where when we have disconnection, it affects the reflective. So the reflective chakra travels out in this kind of cornucopia shape. So it goes out, it's doing this. So it comes around the sides and it's doing this, and it comes around the front and then it's doing this. So one side is spinning one way, one side is spinning another. You get the picture of the turning wheel, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and goes way out. So the reflective chakra rosette starts at the front, but then it goes out. So those are the two, the blue and the yellow, are the energies coming from around the side. Okay, yeah, so the electromagnetic damage that people experience during concussions, during strokes, during any event that creates PTSD, basically, any event that does that, the damage that we have to our electromagnetic field means that we are no longer able to send the message of that interior chakra, that major chakra. So let's talk about that. What does that mean? So you've got a heart chakra that just, you're feeling all this love for humanity and you want to connect. And then you have an event that affects the heart chakra and disconnects the connectors. The electromagnetic field goes down. It's unable to deliver that message. So the very job of your electromagnetic field, which is a part of the structure that only exists while you're physically in a body, this electromagnetic field's job is to deliver the information of your deep soul's knowledge, your soul's purpose. That's where the problem is, guys. When people say, I don't know what my soul's purpose is, 90% of the time, they're disconnected in some way. Not disconnected from life, but disconnected from themselves. And so they're unable to really deliver the information that, their structure is wanting to get out there. Because let's face it, why else are we alive other than to deliver the message of our purpose? That's it. That's the whole deal. And so people feel very ungrounded when they don't know what their purpose is. And where is that lack of ground coming from? It's coming from the connection between the subtle and the material. Nazi, did I answer your question? You feeling it? Not quite. So there's more. You want more?
Well, yeah, I just was trying to understand the bridge. I understand when is there's a failure that communication and expressions and are going to be affected. But I wasn't sure what this bridge is all about. Just I was more keen on knowing what this bridge is. Is this like some real bridge, or is this like how does it transform from reflective to main?
Well, it's a vehicle. Think of it as a vehicle. It's a conduit. It's a delivery system.
Okay.
And we call it the bridge because, it's like the Golden Gate Bridge. It delivers you from one side of the bridge to the other side of the bridge. It takes the information across. So if you have a healthy and, correctly firing electromagnetic field, you have the ability to convey your soul's purpose. That information comes forward. If you don't, you are frustrated in some way. Some part of you is not delivering the information. You can be connected in 2 or 3 chakras and everything's fine there, but the others you're not connected in, you may be having trouble there. So one of the purposes of this work, Sacred Anatomy Energy Medicine, is to connect human beings to their soul's purpose anatomically without a bunch of psychodrama. And believe me, I've explored psychodrama, but we're not really interested in it because it sort of stops us from making the leap into purposeful action. You got to analyze trauma, but you don't need to define yourself as the trauma. You can move beyond it. It's like you can analyze addiction, you can understand addiction, you can work with addiction, but you do not need to define yourself as an addict forever once you have really resolved the underlying issues. And maybe you have a tendency that your physical body is crying for something. So that's where you need to work, right? And this isn't to say that the people that define themselves as addicts are bad and wrong. I don't feel that at all. It's a step. It's a part of the path. Sort of like if you have depression in your teens and you start taking medication for it before you really know why you're depressed, you maybe don't learn why you're depressed. So it's important to not medicate or define or name or condemn or judge who we are and what we are. We're more complicated than we know. And there's more to us than we know. The core is divine source, pure divine source. At your core, you are perfect, you are whole, you are complete. You're never going to be broken at your core. You're never going to be bent or injured at your core. Even if your core is not perfectly straight, it's still perfectly whole. So the thing that you need to always return to is that at my core, I am one with universal consciousness. I'm one with the energies of all the spheres. I'm one with everything. And it doesn't have to be a religious moment. It can simply be anatomy. You can look at your core as this anatomical plug that plugs you in to the big socket of life itself. So here we are, manifesting out of that core as we individuate. We become these individuated natures. And our electromagnetic field, you guys, is where we hold our persona. It's where we hold the ego. It's where we hold all of those like emotional entanglements and things. And that's happening here. So often people feel, oh, I'm broken at my soul, you know. And one thing I hear a lot from people, which it's chalkboard fingers for me, I didn't want to come. I fought not to be here. I didn't want to be alive. I was so upset when I was born. I didn't want to be in this world, blah, 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 blah. Give me a break. The truth is we all choose to come. We're all here for good reason. Now, if the situation you found yourself in is crazy, you know, and you've got a mother screaming hysterically and a father yelling and at birth, and you know, the doctor's dropping instruments and the midwife is having an hysterical breakdown, you may look around as an infant and go, this sucks, you know, I didn't choose this. Or if your body is somehow damaged, you know, if you come in with some kind of genetic deformity or an issue that's going to make you different forever. It may be a discovery at that moment, and you may not be happy about that. But let me tell you, you chose to come. You chose to come. We are not victims of the universe. We're partners. We're partners in creation, and we're partners with the universe. And the sooner you get your head around that one, the easier your life will get, because you'll stop being in resistance to your own power, which is profound. So when you're working to heal an issue with the electromagnetic conduction of your ego, one of the things you do is you just get really big and you stretch out and you try to control the world and manage it all, and you're pushing your own energy out. And you do a thing called merging then. And you start merging with all the people you know, and you start merging with the electrical light bulbs, and you start merging with the television and the computer, and you start electromagnetically merging. So you're sending out your own electrical energy, which is the energy that keeps you alive, by the way, and then you're pulling in the magnetic attraction. See, it's like you're having sex with everything, which is nuts. So it's really important to realize that your electromagnetic field needs to be contained. It's your personal chi field. It's where you're going to get that extra juice that you need to lift the baby, you know, lift the car off the baby, or whatever you got to do. Run, you know, a 4-minute mile. Whatever you have to do, you can pull this chi and use it. But not if it's stretched out, into infinity. You can't do that. So let's all pull our electromagnetic fields in. Place your hands right here. There are handles. And just say, come in, and come into about 4 feet, right around your physical body. And can you see how far you were stretched out? Can you feel that? You're probably pretty far stretched out, yeah. And now go above you and below you, and feel the handles there, and pull in. And look at that. So some of us get like try to dominate our world, so we get really tall energetically, and that's electromagnetic because it's your ego that's doing that. So you want to keep it a little bit tight. Now, front and back, go ahead and pull in. Pull in, yeah. And so you bring it in all around you. So it's about, 4 feet or so out from your physical body. If that's uncomfortable for you, go ahead and release it a little. Some of you need a bigger electromagnetic field. Like, for example, if you're a linebacker in the, San Diego Chargers, you might need a little bigger electromagnetic field. But believe me, everybody here does not need that kind of electromagnetic field. None of us are doing that kind of work. So as you bring in your electromagnetic energy, there's something that you can do to keep it there. Would you like to keep it there so it doesn't go flopping all around and connecting into the light bulbs and into the, trying to connect into the sun? That's a new one I've seen. I've seen this recently. I'd be interested if you've seen it, Diane. But I've recently seen people with these huge solar flares that we've had connecting into the damn solar flares. And they're just like, they're not looking real good. They're plugging into the solar flares because they've reached out so far to try to expand themselves, to try to understand and control their world, to try to do things like understand the politics or understand their family's insanity or to understand even tech, right? So people are stretching themselves now. And I'm going to make a suggestion other than stretching what we can do, okay? But here we go. Sorry. I had a cold at Christmas. I have to thank my grandson. He gave me a lovely cold for Christmas. But I'm almost over it. So we stretch out, we try to connect in, and we bring that electromagnetic chi into our body, and then we try to purify it energetically. And that's when your chakras go, are you kidding me? I can't do this. I can't do this. What are you trying to do? You crazy thing. What are you trying to do? So one of the things that disconnects us from the value of the electromagnetic field chakra is this constant connection with other people that we could call merging or enmeshment, right? If you've been enmeshing and merging with your family, you need a thing called the Sacred Anatomy Edge practice. And I'm going to tell you something that's exciting because I have been teaching this practice in a class that is like a 6-week class, 3 hours a week for 6 weeks. I have just recently reduced that class to 3 hours, just one 3-hour class. And we've simplified it down. And I'm getting ready to release that in a very interesting and exciting way. So keep your eyes open and ready, because one of the things is the 6-week class goes very deep into what you're feeling and the anatomy and all this, very detailed. But the 3-hour class, it's just what you need to know. So some people are going to feel more attracted to that, I think. And we've got to get the Sacred Anatomy Edge out there, because when you use the edge of your sacred anatomy to interact in the world, you're in the seat of compassion. So it's literally the most compassionate approach you can have towards other people is to be at the edge. It's completely honest. It's healthy. You'll be your most intelligent at your edge, and you'll be able to access everything within you, your entire subtle anatomy, as well as your physical body and your brain in all its locations. Okay, are there any questions? Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions.
Well, there are lots of questions in the chat.
Oh, yeah? Okay, I didn't see.
Michelle says hello from France and that she was feeling the energies very strongly.
All right, Michelle.
And Sharon asks, what can one do to help with inflammation after COVID? How does
Oh, man.
this reflect through the layers or vice versa?
Yeah, well, inflammation is one of the biggest problems that we have physically today. Autoimmune disease is it's the inflammation disease, right? So we have inflammation happening all over the place and in many different ways. COVID-19 causes inflammation, as do all influenzas and all the different COVID strains. So it's not unique to COVID-19. All of these problems cause inflammation. Just even a cold, like the little cold that I had, the little normal winter cold, seasonal change cold, which is actually kind of good for the immune system, that also is a kind of inflammation. And you get that runny nose and, you're discharging. Now, if you don't discharge like that, your lymph becomes clogged. When your lymph becomes clogged, then you start to have problems. And we see things like more serious diseases in people who are clogged up lymphatically. For example, cancer is one of the things where you see a lot of lymph congestion, and it's clogged to the point where it's hard. Lymph can be hard, and you need to relax that. So, believe it or not, one of the very best things you can do to recover from COVID inflammation is to get out and move, to walk. Walk. If you cannot walk, if you don't have a rocking chair, you can rock. Rock in whatever chair you've got. When you're watching TV, move your feet, move your legs like this. Tense, release. Tense, release. Do all these things. Move your arms like this. Move your arms like this. Moving is one of the best things you can do to release that COVID inflammation. How does that impact the sacred anatomy? It impacts it because anytime you're doing anything to release inflammation in the physical body, the subtle structure responds by supporting that release. So what would it be doing? It would be releasing holding patterns in the subtle structure. So we have parts of us that become contracted when we become inflamed. So you would think, well, inflammation is going to make me blow up. No, actually what inflammation does is it causes you to contract. It causes you to contract in. So your spongy framework, which is like the rib cage of the bones of light, that becomes contracted. Your layers become contracted. Your chakras become contracted. Your template becomes contracted. So inflammation equals contraction in the sacred anatomy. And that is an important thing to understand. So there's something very easy that you can do to release contraction in the nervous system, for example. And COVID-19, and some people respond to the vaccinations this way too, they can have an experience of the nervous system contracting. Now, everybody that I know that I've worked with who's had the COVID vaccine and has had an attunement of the vaccine, I'm not seeing that. So, so far, okay? But what I do see is that people that don't have this attunement, who get the vaccine, can mimic some of the inflammatory process of actually getting COVID. So this is one of the things that I've seen. And it doesn't mean the vaccine's bad for you. It means that you're not attuned to the vaccine, that the vaccine's trying to change you. And that's bad for any vaccine. You don't want any vaccine to try to change you. Just like you don't want any drug to try to change you. Even chemotherapy that's trying to reduce the size of a tumor. If it's not attuned, it runs kind of wild through the system and begins to affect lots of parts of the body that it would be better if it didn't. Okay, did that spark some questions? All right. So I think we could do a template expansion, and that would help us understand what inflammation feels like. I'm not going to teach how to attune a vaccine, Poang. Thank you for asking. That's taught in Medicine Bag, which is the next, it's coming up. It's the next class for people to take if they've taken energetic hygiene. Then they go into Medicine Bag, and in Medicine Bag, they learn how to attune medications. They learn how to do all kinds of things that are very cool. All right, so I'm going to show you a template expansion. And a template expansion, now that we've pulled in our electromagnetic fields, what are we actually expanding? Can we see a picture of the template, Cheryl? Okay, so that's what the template kind of looks like. This is a little idealized. But the template expansion is what happens when we interface with that. See that round thing at the center of the physical body? That's called the star point. And when we interface with the star point in a particular way, which I will show you, the template expands. This is an expanded template. This is a healthy, expanded template. Imagine what happens if someone has had COVID, for example, and their whole template shrinks in and they become contracted. And that's not ideal. Now, you might ask the question, well, you just asked me to pull my electromagnetic field in. Why are you now telling me to expand my template? Well, the reason is that the electromagnetic field's purpose is to be a chi field for you personally. The template's purpose is to act as a nervous system, as well as a part of the digestive system of the subtle anatomy. So the nervous system reaches out and interfaces with the cosmos. Your electromagnetic field is meant to interface with your body and your spirit, but not cosmically. As the energy of the electromagnetic field travels out, it goes out kind of like little radio waves, so that it goes out into the universe, and that's how we interact with the electromagnetic field. But the template, no, it's a whole different thing. It's how we attract universal source energies to fuel us. And if your template is pulled in and contracted, you're living in a state of kind of fight or flight, right? You're hunkered down. What happens if you're not hunkered down? What happens if you're feeling great? Now, just imagine you're driving down the road, you're singing to your favorite song, you love driving your car, the windows are down, it's a beautiful day, you're having a great time, and somebody cuts you off. In that moment, you go from an expanded place to a contracted place, right? So one of the things that happens to people is they forget that they contracted. And they stay in this contracted, held place instead of allowing themselves to go back to the full open place. Now, if in that moment of contraction you have a trauma also, like what if there's a car collision? That can cause you to stay contracted. So if at any time in your life you've had an accident, a contracting accident, your template is probably contracted. At some point, you maybe did a bunch of body work, maybe you fell in love, maybe good things happened, maybe you ate your favorite food, and you start to expand and you feel really good. But at the back of your mind, you've got that contraction. You've got the knee-jerk response. You know? You know how it feels when you get mad at somebody? You know how you just go, you pull in. Your solar plexus gets all flipped out, right? And you pull in and you're like, it's all right here, contract it. The tablet expansion that I'm just going to do with you is a really cool way to get out of that without having to process, let's see, why am I upset? Well, you're upset because you're upset, period. Let's get on with the fact of life, you know? So I'm not a big believer anymore. I used to believe that it was really important to feel everything, but I am now through the other side of that, and I don't think it's that important. Feeling is important in that it informs us, but I don't necessarily think we have to dwell on upset, you know? Because it's like, first of all, it's kind of a waste of time. How many people manage to get from birth to age 40, let's say, without a major upset? Like nobody, right? So how do people become really effective? They learn how to not let upset stop them. They learn how to keep going through it. Some of you have had the most profound things happen. You've lost children, you've lost spouses, you've been abandoned, you've been betrayed. You know, you people have all gone through it in life, right? Are you going to live out of the contraction, or are you going to live out of the open heart? And that's the question we all are in. I want to give you a quote. This is from Marcus Aurelius. It's really old, thousands of years old. He said, and he wrote, he was a writer, so this is his words. Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now, take what's left and live it properly. What doesn't transmit as light creates its own darkness. So live it properly. I really like that quote. It's one of the best things I've heard in a long time. I got that out of, there's a woman named Kara Switzer, who's a political writer. And she's especially interested in the tech bros and finance and stuff. And Kara Swifter had this quote in her book, and I thought, now we're talking. This is a good quote. All right, let's expand the template. So the first thing you got to do, I'm going to move my chair way back. And my template star point is right about here. It's sort of near your belly button. So I'm going to ask you all to find your star point. And some of you can stand up if you'd like, but I can do it sitting down too. So bring your hand down. You're going to come down, 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 flat palm to the floor, and you're going to go directly to that star point. You're going to feel kind of a bump. It's like a pooch, little pooching out. And when you get there, you're going to bounce up and down very gently, not hard, gentle, gentle, gentle. And then you're going to say out loud, for a reason I'll explain in a minute, expand. And then you're going to just wait while your structure expands. And track the expansion as it goes, as it goes, as it goes and goes. Take a deep breath. Bring your hand down again. All the way down. And as it comes to your star point, bounce up and down. Gentle, gentle. Love your star point. And say one more time, expand. And then watch as it expands, expands, expands. Feel that expansion happening. Front, back, left, right, up, down. It's expanding all the way around. Breathe in. Feel that expansion as it exists in your structure. And now bring your hand down one last time, all the way down to the star point. And you can feel as you're moving your hand through your structure that things are different. Bump up and down a little and say, expand. And let your template expand. I cannot stress strongly enough, don't hit your star point, just tickle it. And there it goes, expand, expand, expand. So what just happened is that your field expanded. How did that hit you? How did that feel? Give me some feedback. I'm listening. How did that feel? Can you breathe more deeply? Ruth K says, lighter. I love it. Is your breath dropped down into your body a little deeper? You might wonder why we have to say it 3 times. Why do you think? Why do you think we say it 3 times? Anybody? Monica says larger. That's great. Good job. Diane says more space and vitality in the HES. Good, good. And why do you guys think we have to do it 3 times? I'm seeing if there's been an accident. Clearer, lighter, more space, vitality, larger, lighter. All right. So the reason we need to do it 3 times is the same. Well, that's right, Christine, imprints more, but not just in the layers, it imprints in the whole structure. So as you guys know that the autonomic nervous system releases when you do 3 deep breaths. Do you know that? Yeah. So what do you think happens when you breathe in deeply and say expand? Your autonomic nervous system, which is part of your larger nervous system, which is your template, everything releases. So this doesn't just help your structure get bigger. This actually helps your nervous system and your physical body relax too. So we do it 3 times so that we make sure there's the physical subtle connection, that it's happening. Now there's so many more questions. I want to get in there and see what else.
Michelle H says she can see energies a bit and can see the energies from the sun, and they are much brighter and stronger, kind of shimmering now.
Yeah, they are. They are. Michelle, I'm coming to Europe, by the way. I'm going to be in Europe in March, and I'm going to be teaching a class in Europe live. So I'll let you know a little bit more about that at the end, but just FYI. There must be huge numbers of people with brain damage in the war zones of the world. Yes, there are. And in our veteran population, people who survive any kind of trauma, all of this is addressed by the working with the sacred anatomy. We can really help people get out of sort of a need to reprocess or reconnect or relive the trauma. So reliving trauma, that looping that happens when you've had an event of some sort, whether it be a terrible event in a war zone or a terrible event in your own head, when you've had that happen, you need to have tools to move out of the trauma and into a healing state. And Sacred Anatomy Energy Medicine gives you those tools. That's the little plug for my practitioners. Adrian says, does spiritually focused fasting affect the sacred anatomy in some way? Yeah, of course it does. Any kind of thing that your physical body goes through, whether it's an exercise program or, making love with a partner or having a fabulous Thanksgiving feast, or any of these things affect the sacred anatomy because it's establishing a sense of well-being in the electromagnetic, and that radiates out. But fasting per se, to touch or connect with the sacred, I'm going to say something that's a little bit against the grain for some cultures and some religions, but it's an unnecessary thing. You don't have to starve yourself to connect with spirit. In fact, connecting with spirit is like a 10-course meal, it fills you up. But some people think that if I could just not eat, that'll cut the distraction, but being hungry is not optimum either. So if you want to lessen the amount of food you eat and experience a kind of fasting, but that isn't starvation, then that can increase your ability to be able to go deep in meditation for some people. But other people, they're just so darn hungry they can't think. They can't not think. They can't get spacious. So I think it's a really individual thing. I mean, there's some people who really would benefit from not eating for 3 or 4 days, And then there's some people that would just make it impossible for them to really have a deep spiritual experience. So I think you really got to take it by what your body wants, but the subtle structure, it doesn't really care. Here's what it does care about: water. It really cares about water. If you're not drinking water, you're not going to be able to make those connections between subtle and material. But food isn't as important. It's not as big a deal. I know that sounds a little strange. Yeah, Michelle says fasting does not suit her. Well, it doesn't suit a lot of people. It's like Vipassana meditation doesn't suit everybody either, So, and Dzogchen meditation doesn't suit everybody. So different things for different people. You are completely individuated. So what your soul needs may not be what somebody else's soul needs. And you can try lots of different things, but be awake and aware of the fact that you are unique. And that's the way you're made. You're made uniquely. Zhang Wang says, Cheryl helped to remove cysts from my Dantian chakra this week. I feel lighter and happier. How can I know if there's a cyst in my chakra by myself in the future? You probably can't, Zhang Wang. There is a value to people training with me for 4 or 5, 10 years, depending. And Cheryl's trained with me for a very long time. And she knows all kinds of things that she can do to help people, as do most of the practitioners. We have one of our senior practitioners here today, and that's Regina Schulman. And different people have studied it for different lengths of times. Kate Zenter's a practitioner. Lori Hart's a practitioner. Elizabeth Poole and Leslie Shade, a bunch of you guys, I'm not going to name everybody, but a bunch of you guys are enrolled for increased education. And I don't teach everybody how to do everything in an hour. It's just, you can't do it. I can't, 10 years is even hard, as Regina can attest. So what can one do to help with COVID inflammation? How does it reflect through the layers? I think I discussed that. Move as much as you can. And if it hurts you to move, move anyway. Move anyway. Let's see if I can pick up.
Sharon has another question. Does the elimination system then shut down with these breaks in the chakra and reflective chakras?
That's a really interesting question. Thank you, Sharon. Yeah, the elimination system is based in the philosophy or concept of releasing attachment. And so the subtle elimination system lets go of attachment when it's stimulated by an energy called quantum resonance. And quantum resonance flows through our structure. Complete release, complete elimination are source energies that support release. And all these energies support you to let go, to release, and allow. When you have a breakdown in one system, it doesn't necessarily follow that another system is going to fail. And in fact, none of the systems ever truly fail. They're always sort of limping along. There's always something happening. When we release attachment, the energy goes through a very complex anatomical structure, which you can see in my book. I've written pages and pages about, and there's lots of drawings. And the energy releases out of the edge of the structure, and it lets go into the universal. When we no longer have attachment to an energetic event or an energetic experience, and we release it, it's got to go to the universal, because like attracts like. So the energy in us can't be unattached. So if we're no longer attached to something, it's going to process out. If your electromagnetic field, our chakras are down, chances are there's attachment to some kind of an issue, a problem, event. If your subtle interior major chakras drop a connector, there's probably an event that's caused it. So there's an attachment underway. And part of what healing that does is release the attachment to allow the incredibly powerful elimination system to let go completely. Cheryl, can you show a picture of the wheels? Show one with the verticals in it. Okay, so this is the elimination system. So what those wheels look like is they look like the wheels of karma. They actually look like the pictures, the Tibetan pictures. That's what they look like. And they spin and they release, and the whole thing pumps and moves this way and that way, spinning and moving at the same time. It's a fairly complex system, but at the edge you can see little things there at the edge. Those are just to give you an idea of how release occurs. It goes out. It's an extremely complex system. It's the most complex system. People don't really even get into the elimination system until level 3 prac training. It's like you have to have a grounding in anatomy to be able to get there. Okay, I think we have reached 8 minutes after the hour, which I'm not done really. Do you guys want to keep going? Yeah? All right. So if enough of you want to keep going, I'll play. Let's go to the half hour, unless we get done before then. Let's see if there's another question to answer. Cheryl.
Yeah, Elizabeth asks, could you please talk of type of energy that the HEMF containing membrane is made of?
Well, now that's a really interesting question because we use a very specific energy to kind of heal the containing membrane, to seal the containing membrane of the electromagnetic field. And but the energy that the containing membrane is made of, now that's different. Okay, so here's the thing. There is this electromagnetic field. Let's see a picture of the electromagnetic field, Cheryl. So the electromagnetic field is in a kind of sac, like a pericardium. So you can see the electromagnetic field here, and it's superimposed over the layers. And the layers are all around and underneath the electromagnetic field, and in fact are interfacing with the electromagnetic field. The white, do you see the white there on the sides? That's sort of an idea of where the containing membrane is and what it looks like. But it goes around all of those things that are called the silver tethers. It goes all around them. This energy in the containing membrane is what I might refer to as a denser version of electromagnetic energy than what we normally sense as electromagnetic energy. The whole system, the whole electromagnetic field is made of electromagnetic energy. But some electromagnetic energy is a little denser than other types of electromagnetic energy. The electromagnetic energy that makes up the general system around us, if you just take your hands and you place it in your electromagnetic field, you can get a kind of a prickly feeling. You may feel heat. And if you want to really feel it, you put it around your head, put your hands around your head. This is where you can really feel it, or over your heart. Because the heart and the head create the brain, creates the most electromagnetic. The heart is much bigger. That electromagnetic field that comes out from the heart is much larger than the one that comes out from the brain. You also can feel it if you go down to your gut. You can feel the same kind of powerful sort of surging energy. That's electromagnetic energy that you're feeling. The containing membrane is tougher than that. So when you reach out to the containing membrane, remember we had those handles which we pulled the electromagnetic field in? Send your light fingers out and push to the containing membrane. Just tell them to go to the containing membrane. And when you're at the containing membrane, feel into sort of the denseness of the containing membrane and feel around it. I get a weird kind of like bumping feeling in one finger when I hit it. It's a really interesting sensation. But if you can feel the containing membrane is different than the electromagnetic field. So put your hand in the electromagnetic and go to the containing membrane. You can feel that it's tighter, it's denser, it's a little tougher. And go ahead and move your hand all around the containing membrane. And if you bump over it, you're going to feel those silver tethers. You're going to feel how they want to take your hand up, away. And that's because their job is to kind of hold the electromagnetic field in place. And there's lots and lots of tethers, lots of tethers. So to answer your question, Elizabeth, there are two sort of levels of intensity in electromagnetic energy. There's the intensity that we feel in the reflective chakras as they move out. There's the intensity we feel in the reflective layers as they interface, which is what they do with the major layers that are beneath them or around them. There's a kind of interface. And there's a really strong container, a containing membrane that is electromagnetic in nature. But it's a denser, thicker kind of electromagnetic energy. Yes, Elizabeth, go ahead.
I believe you said that the HEMF dies when the physical body dies or leaves the structure, but I believe the containing membrane doesn't. Is that correct?
No, the containing membrane goes with it.
Oh, the containing membrane does go with it.
Yeah.
I thought it was sort of stood as a place marker. Okay, I misunderstood that.
No, what stays is the light body.
Could you explain that?
Okay, so the light body is inside the physical body, and you could think of it as a photonically fired reflective body. Everything in the electromagnetic field is reflective, and so is the light body. The difference with the light body and the electromagnetic field is that the light body has a subtle energy component that kind of holds it together and keeps it functioning. Remember when we were talking earlier about getting the brain, the head brain and the gut brain together on the same page? Guess where that's contained? That's contained in the light body. Why is it in the light body? Because it has an electromagnetic impact, but it's subtle energy in the light body doing that. So it's the thing about the light body is that it contains both subtle energy and electromagnetic energy. It's distinctly different from the other parts of the anatomy of the electromagnetic field. And because of that, it doesn't die. The part that dies is the photonic firing. But what remains is the subtle energy part of the light body. So the light body is exciting because it's like, wow, this is where it's taking place. This is that internal like mixing bowl where we can bring subtle and material together right inside. And it's no coincidence that it's right there in those 7 chakras. It's feeling the input of all of that. So does that answer your question, Elizabeth? Yeah? Okay, good. Leslie, speak up.
So when somebody who's deceased comes to us and it's still grandma and it's not her ego and it's not the electromagnetic field, is it that light body part that lets us recognize them?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also the part of you that astral projects, So those of you that do astral projection or that have the experience of leaving your body and flying in the night, in a dream or whatever, that's the electromagnetic component of the subtle anatomy that will let go. And it is connected by a silver cord. And it is right there in the physicality. So it has that quality of, can you show that one picture, Cheryl, of the light body? It is that quality of lifting up. And people who regularly astral project leave a physical body behind. And this is the light body that goes up and out. It has less distinction of features, doesn't have so much of the egoic content, and it's more like a seeker. And it just depends on how you're wired if you do that. I don't know. I don't think astral projection is all that healthy, but that is what it is. Thanks. You're welcome. So it'll always resemble grandma. It won't look just like grandma. A lot of times when sorry, go ahead.
When my father came to me after he had died, what came to my mind was my father beyond my father.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like the big version of who he really, yeah. And the thing is that when you see a person who is in their energy body or their spirit body, they're going to try to appear to you, if their desire is to communicate with you, they're going to appear to you in a way that you will be able to recognize them. So they'll kind of look like they did in the life when you knew them. But do they really look like that? Nah.
Okay. That's kind of what I thought. But
Yeah, they don't really.
Do you mind if I ask another question?
No, go ahead. You might as well.
Might as well. Okay. My son came to me exactly a week before he died.
Mm.
And I was having a Reiki session, and I heard his voice in the room. I heard the door open. I heard the voice in the room, and I saw him come around me with a guide or whomever angel, whatever, beside him. And he talked to me, and I could hear him in the room. But when I
Yeah.
answered in my mind, he went to mental, so it was
Hmm.
in my ear.
Telepathy. Yeah.
Right. And then it went to thought forms. And then he put a download into my belly that I didn't understand. I knew
Hmm.
David was coming in, but I didn't know what it was. But my question, he came and he opened his arms and he said, "This is who I really am."
Nice.
And he was like, instead of 22, he was like 32, all
Uh,
filled out and wonderful.
wow.
How, I mean, it gave me such solace when he died a week later. But how did he do that? I mean,
Well, so my question is, was he ill?
no, he died in a car crash. He was told, died because of a drunk driver.
So there was probably the way he did that was with spiritual direction. So it was the guide or guardian or whoever brought him to you to show you him as a fully mature, functioning man with great heart, came to you to show him, to show you that this event that was going to transpire wasn't about you, wasn't anything you did wrong, or it was a way that he could connect with you to relieve you of pain before you experience. It was a great act of love, I think. Great act of love. I mean, we don't often have that kind of experience with people before they die, but this was a great act of love. And it was just his soul reaching across the time and space. I mean, we really live outside of time and space. Our sacred anatomy is outside of time and space. So people that are going to encounter death soon, you'll see often, especially if they're really ill, they're traveling around. You may see them in your dreams. You may see them standing in your living room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was my brother. He came before he died.
Hmm. Well, thank you for sharing all of this, Leslie. This is informative for everyone, and I appreciate your sharing. It was really kind of you to open your heart like that. Um, Poang, she's got a question. I just saw it. She says, "Is there a root cause to endometriosis, or is it specific to each person?" There is no real root cause to specific physical illnesses in the sacred anatomy system, because everyone's physical body is their textbook and is basically teaching us what we need to learn. So our physical bodies are in service of the soul's evolutionary development. Endometriosis as a physical condition is one way that the subtle certainly could get your attention. you know so there's a quality of that in all illness. It's like, how many of you have been sick and felt like you just got smacked upside the head by your soul? Like, wake up, you twit, I mean, how many times has that happened? I mean, doesn't it just kind of consistently happen? So, somebody with endometriosis, a lucky girl, every single month she gets to remember that she is a physical body and that her spirit is bigger than that. So it's a profound thing. So when we get sick, it's not because we did something wrong. It's not because, I mean, unless you're standing over a hot, blanket of asbestos and breathing deeply on purpose, or smoking cigarettes, or doing some other harebrained thing, you know, maybe you do have a causative factor there. But when we get sick, it's just our body talking to us and telling us, This is going on. So it's really important to not, one of the things that the New Age encouraged at the beginning was to blame the victim. You know? So something happens, and I remember people saying to me, now, what do you think is the cause for your, migraine headache? What is your cause? It's like, well, I have a migraine. That's the cause of the pain, And they're like, no, like, what spiritually is off? Or what did you do to make this happen, It's like, cut yourself some slack, for God's sake. It's true that things are connected across time and space within the subtle and the material. But if you end up with some gall darn disease, it's not because you're a terrible person, and it's not because you did something wrong, and it's not because you're evil and you're paying for that time you were yelling at your mother, and it's not because you had an abortion or because you went to the moon. There's no gods of punishment hanging around. Life is not punishment. The Buddha said life is struggle. But he also said, if you stop grasping for solutions and understanding, life could be very groovy. So the idea here is to stop fighting, stop resisting, allow yourself to be. And whatever condition that is, some of the most evolved people that I've ever met died of diseases. Because guess what? Nobody gets out of here alive. Something's going to happen, That's true. And our ecology, the planet is sick, there's stuff going on. So that's enough on that. I ranted enough. Okay, I'd like us to kind of wrap up. So Cheryl, can you show us some slides of what's coming up with the Sacred Anatomy Academy? All right, our next Friday Anatomy, which we're trying to name. We want to name this, and I think we're going to start calling it Ask Me Anything. So that is February 7th. So don't miss it. Also March 7th, bring your questions, get ready, sign up if you haven't, or share, or whatever you want to do. Show us the next slide. Okay, so the Sacred Anatomy Secret, which is a free class, coming up January 22nd. And I'm in that class going to give you an experience of what the edge is like. And then a new version of the edge class is going to be offered coming up very soon after that January 22nd date. So you can register right now for the Sacred Anatomy Secret, and there will be more information about the new edge class coming to your computer. Okay. So thank you so much for coming today. It was delicious and delightful to see you. I want to tell you quickly about the class I'm doing in Europe. It starts on March 28th. It's at an extraordinary venue, a 12th century castle, about 50 minutes outside of Paris. And it's March 28th, 29th, and 30th. And the food is French, just saying. It's good. The place is gorgeous. It's called A Luminous Life. And that class is focused on, it's going to include the 3-hour edge class, but it's also going to include a whole deep and profound dive into the 4 aspects of your authentic self, which are your higher self. So if you live on the East Coast of the United States, a quick hop. If you live in the UK, it's a little drive under the channel. So come on, if you live in Europe or you know friends who are in Europe, you want to turn them on to this work, send the information of our website. It's the classes Illuminous Life is on the website now, so you can go and take a little tour of the fun things that are all around it. There's no prerequisite for the class, so anybody can come. And it's going to be really, really fun. So, not to mention delicious. Like I said, the food's French. So, yeah. All right. I don't want to go. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. It's nice to meet the newbies. It's nice to see the oldies. And it's especially nice to get all these questions. And I sure hope they have been helpful for you and will bring you solace in your everyday life. Remember to hold your light open, to lift your lamp high, and to know that you matter in the process of all of this living. Much love. See you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.